Kill Team Salvation and Killzone Beta Decima review. Who's it for? Should beginners buy it? Well, first, many thanks to Games Workshop for sending me Warhammer 40k Kill Team Salvation and Beta Decima for review. Although they provide it, they do not tell me what to say or get to see my review before I post it, or watch my channel, or know that I exist, if I'm honest, so it's kind of irrelevant, just letting you know. Now, I have this full product review video you're watching now, separate Scout and Eldar team deep dives, and an unboxing to completion video where I review the plastic itself, and a fully edited battle report on my other channel, Tactical Skew. So check all of that out too. This might be the only video that comes up for you, but see them all, I guess. Summary review at the top here. The terrain is the worst offering from GW I've possibly ever seen. Even Chalnath was better because although the play experience wasn't amazing, at least it looked cool. This I don't like at all. But that's an aesthetic opinion from me. Okay, if you like the look and aesthetic of this terrain, good for you. Then this terrain isn't that bad. Probably, I guess. Is the play experience good? I don't know. Keep watching to find out. The Scouts are a solid looking 9-man marine alternative with zero list building, but with a decent power level. I'd guess probably sitting in the mid tiers, but there's certainly no slouches. Whereas the Blades of Cain are the total opposite as an 8-man team with many viable builds and the most ploys we've seen in the game so far. And honestly, I struggle to see how they won't end up on top tables constantly. But honestly, that's Games Workshop's Eldar bias showing through as always. Let's be honest, it's kind of almost like they hire playtesters who have a favourite faction and those guys just wear the dev team down with constant debate into just letting the faction be overpowered. Yeah, seems to be a thing for both 40k and maybe Kill Team. So if you are hyped on Scouts or Eldar, I think you get what you want in this box, and I can heartily recommend it if you like either team. Also, due to the new form factor, if you only want the teams and not the terrain, it's going to be cheaper than before, and that is just great, really, for the wallet. Also, finally, they've given us data cards and new tokens, and they're all great quality too. However, note to beginners and frankly the product designer of this box, there are no core rules in here. Keep that in mind. Despite this being the launch box for Season 3, it's lacking core rules. Obviously there are places to get them online, but I would have really liked to see the mini core rulebook from the starter set included in this, just to round it out as an easy start point for those that didn't want Vet Guard or Commandos. Because honestly, Scouts and Scorpions is a totally viable alternative as a starting faction with the bare bones and simple Scouts compared to the relatively complex Eldar. And now that we have multiple official data cards, yes, these huge A5 data cards are really nice, very readable. They are really, really huge, but possibly the key there is really, really huge. They are really, really huge to the point that they are impractical and won't get used outside of casual games, in my hot take. The Strikeforce Justian cards, tarot size cards, are a great size. I know I'm kind of asking for less of something, but the truth is that while I like the data cards for the Scorpions and Scouts to play at home on my 40k size table you see here, I won't bother taking them to a tournament or a casual game night if we're playing on smaller boards. I had a similar gripe about the size of cards in Star Wars Shatterpoint, and it's a usability issue to be considered. There you go. Before we crack on with this long and in-depth review, I'd like to give a big subscriber-only benefit. So if you're not subscribed, jump ahead 30 seconds, and that is a double hello. Wow, so wholesome, and truly the wholesomeness knows no bounds for such a polite and pleasant pleasantry receiver like yourself. Thank you. Also, if you like what I'm doing here, consider checking me out on Patreon. It's basically a glorified tip jar, I'm not going to lie, but I give you extra videos like random unboxings and channel updates. Also, at certain tiers, I give digital goodies like my objective markers and STL for these Glass Half Dead themed tokens, and some data card templates. Anyway, on with the review. The Scout Squad. This is going to be a very standard kill team. 9 models, APL 2 with leader APL 3, 10 wounds, 4 up saves. I think the best loadout is very clear and will rarely be deviated from. This is a very standard kill team in regards to that, aka bare bones list building is what I mean by standard. There is essentially one choice, shotguns or melee. And the answer is always shotguns. Personally, or potentially, sorry, you might want your sergeant to have a shotgun or bolter. I went with melee as his loadout, but I can see arguments for other things, but that's the only change you will ever make. And that's kind of the team decided, at least from a model perspective. Equipment is also going to be standard marine fare of, frag, crack, smoke, jump ropes. Archetypes are infiltration and recon, which literally means always infiltration because it's the best. So the conceit of the team, as so often happens, lies in its ability, and they have an interesting one. Forward scouting. You have 8 options and can choose 5. After everyone deploys, you get to booby trap the battlefield, essentially. Out of these abilities, you can do 5 things. Depending on the ability, a different number of times. Redeploy an operative, pre-game dash, order flip, as we expect from the scouting step, but additional ones. You can also place an alarm token that swaps an enemy from concealed to engaged when they move within circle of it. Or place a mine that does d6 mortals if it gets stepped on, if you roll a 50-50 roll. Or, -1 to an enemy operative's APL. Or you can gain 1 CP. And you can select 1 enemy for all of your operatives to effectively gain balance against for the game. So you've got a lot of interesting stuff there. Your ploys, however, are relatively basic. Nothing to dive into there, to be honest. But I think that's to make them a beginner team. You kind of decide everything before you hit go, and then when you hit go, because you've made all of your decisions, the actual in-game thing is just, let's play, right? And it's very simple from that point onwards. But getting to pressing go is a little bit of thought process, yeah. Then we get the Blades of Cain. Now things are very different here. Although the box comes with 10 Scorpions, you're only using 8, it's an 8 model team, but you can build an X-Arch twice, so you have 2 different loadouts fresh out of the box. Every model is APL 3, 8 wounds, 4 up saves, with the X-Arches being 9 wounds, 3 up saves. They're all pretty much 4 attacks in melee, with the X-Arches being 5 attacks in melee as well, keep that in mind. Of course, the box is Scorpions only, but you can also run Howling Banshees and Dire Avengers. Depending on the operatives you run, that unlocks different archetypes, but you always have Seek and Destroy as a fallback. You can run any mix you want, and how you mix them will play into your TAC ops. But we need to discuss their ability because these are the big thing, right? The abilities. So there are no specialists in this team. Instead, each aspect has access to 5 ploys that can be used every activation and cost no CP. Okay? So, although their base stats aren't anything to write home about, well, 3 APL is, but ignore that. Every single activation you get to do extra stuff. This is cool because it gives you lots to think about in list building. But it's not super subtle and nuanced list building. It's big and bold and obvious and feels impactful. Taking a Dire Avenger versus a Banshee feels like a big choice. Instead of taking a dude with a gun with Ceaseless versus a dude with a gun with P1. That is boring list building. This is cool list building. And then your tactical decisions on the table also feel quite powerful because you get to play with core fundamentals. This is the shooting guy, he wants to shoot. This is the melee horde killer, he wants to kill hordes. This is the melee elite killer, he wants to kill elites. But then you have a tactical decision to make each time on how you do that, how you enhance yourself for it. But the team plays the same even without using those additional aspect techniques. Your team is still good at what they do if you forget to use your abilities. It's the same with Void Dancers. They are still a great team even if you don't use their ploys and abilities. Blades of Cain will rely on solid fundamental gameplay, and then choosing how to turn your fundamental gameplay into top tier gameplay. Killzone Beta Decima, fake Warhammer Latin alphabet for Killzone BD, could be baddie, could be big dick, who knows. Or Big Daddy, oh, maybe it's like a Bioshock thing. Yeah, that makes sense, maybe. Let's go with that, yeah. Killzone Big Daddy. Now, unlike previous Kill Team boxes, the terrain needed to play this Killzone is not included in the box, aka Killzone Kill Team Salvation. Instead, it will be a separate box, Killzone Beta Decima. Honestly, I'm okay with this, and full transparency, of course, as a reviewer of Kill Team stuff, they send me it all free of charge, right? So all the previous boxes were free to me. I only had to sell my integrity, but I've never had that anyway, so essentially completely free. But honestly, whether I was sent this set or not, my thoughts would not have changed. I don't like this terrain. I would have bought it though anyway, because I'm a Kill Team channel, right? But if I wasn't a Kill Team channel, I would skip this box. So, your mileage may vary. Personal taste, obviously. Anyway, look, it makes the box with the teams cheaper, and of course they definitely produce enough, not even a question, there's no doubt about that, right, for sure, as we all know. So more people will be able to buy it, which is great. It makes the game more affordable and therefore easier to recommend. Honestly, recommending Into the Dark boxes was getting hard because the terrain was a huge factor, solved by the fact that no one could buy any due to stock issues. So thanks Games Workshop for solving that moral conundrum, but whatever. So the included terrain, the little bits that go, like the little narrative sprues is what we call them in Into the Dark, right? But it's maybe not a narrative sprue now. Worst I've ever seen. This is like they received feedback saying players don't like getting the same terrain kit 4 times in a year, and the product designer took that as a challenge to make us crave for the days of too much cool terrain. I can only imagine this is what being cucked feels like. Not only is it not much, but it's honestly just the most generic and boring stuff I've ever seen. I'm currently playing a bunch of War Machine from Privateer Press, and they don't make terrain, so I'm looking at getting like a full board of Mordheim like twisting city streets 3D printed. So my mind is full of cinematic cool terrain mode, and I'm lamenting that Privateer Press doesn't just sell me their terrain, right? But this level of terrain makes me realise that it can be done really, really wrong, even from a company that has great terrain normally. So maybe it's for the best that I have to go third party for War Machine, because if any other company released this offering of terrain, they'd be slated. As I shall slate GW. Look, if you can't do it well, don't do it. I wouldn't insult my playtable by putting this trash on it. Look at the Warcry box. Their single piece of terrain is a bad-ass Sarlacc pit. I mean, look, this terrain is so bad that every time I'm not directly looking at it, I forget what it is. I don't know. A pump or something. In the whole world of 40k, they sold us literal trash. To get us hard with a Sarlacc pit, only to finish us off with a futuristic pump gauge, is essentially a Warcry. Rant over. I fully recommend that everyone live vicariously through content creators who didn't have to buy the terrain kit but use it in their battle reports, than buying it yourself. With the minor addendum that apparently it's a great Necromunda kit, because the height of the gantries is the same as the height of the Zone Mortalis walls. Necromunda Batrep on Tactical Skew coming soon, by the way. And there you go, that's pretty much it. Grab it before the 40k players do. Fingers crossed, GW has made enough for the Kill Team community before the savages descend. And if you made it to the end of the video, then honestly, thank you. Nothing helps a small channel like mine more than just watching the whole thing. I would like to thank you with giving a little something back. And that is a triple hello. Thank you so much. Don't forget to check out my Patreon. Essentially a glorified tip jar, but I do give you some extra stuff at times. Stay polite, stay humble, my chaps, chapesses, and chap I.